Hi, welcome to Actual Spinster. Today I'm going to talk about my favourites from 2021, just like last year, to try and get as much goodness out of an awful year as possible. Let's go. I've split things into sections, so I think we'll just start with the first section, which is watching. This covers like a range of things, but the first thing is a talk by Maya Williams called Revolutionary Mothering, and it was like hosted by the Anarchist Feminist Book Fair in Edinburgh. And it's really great. It's kind of just about like the role of care in revolutionary movements and how spaces that don't prioritise care are going to fail. And specifically also like mothers participating in revolutionary struggle, and yeah, it was really cool. I asked a question. Yeah, I'd really recommend it. The next thing in this section is this ASMR video that's like a mushroom ASMR video, and the mushroom is like decomposing your dead body. And obviously if you don't like ASMR, you're not gonna like this, and maybe if you even like ASMR you might not like this, but if you ever wanted to be decomposed by a mushroom, I'd recommend it. It's very cute and fun, and you know, every night I hear somebody be like, oh, you're dead. So it's sort of a vibe too. The next like watching thing is actually somebody on TikTok, and that's CO Bernstein, who is a TikToker. Like she makes like Yiddish TikToks, and I specifically love like the songs, like the Yiddish songs she sings, but generally I just really love her like stuff. And she works at the Yiddish Book Centre, so she often like is sort of showing these like really beautiful Yiddish books and talking about them, and or singing, and yeah, she like provides like captioning, she provides like Yiddish that's transliterated, as well as the actual like alphabetic like Hebrew / Yiddish like alphabet of it. I don't know how to say words clearly, but I hope that makes sense, so that like as well as a translation too generally. So that's really nice as somebody who doesn't know how to speak Yiddish but would like to. I just really liked her presence, I really enjoyed her TikToks, and I'm, you know, looking forward to learning more Yiddish and also seeing what else she will make. I think I'd also say that Star Trek Discovery is a favourite, and like that's like the first Star Trek that I'd ever watched and stuff, and yeah, I just really got into it this year. I still haven't watched the latest season because it's not on Netflix and stuff, and I haven't quite figured out how I'm going to do that, but I just love it, and I love Michael Burnham so much. In fact, I really want to rewatch it now. But I'd also say that like that me enjoying Star Trek kind of led me to like actually seek out more sci-fi generally, so that's sort of also part of the favourite, I guess. I think the next ones I'm going to talk about are just all films. Because I'm a fool, I didn't look up the actual names of who made these films, but I will, you know, put a picture of the film cover which should say who made them as I speak about them. So the first film is a film called Mermaids. It has Winona Ryder in and Cher, and it's like set in the 60s, and it's basically about this like mother-daughter relationship, and also the daughter is like kind of obsessed with nuns, and like they're like a very interesting pair because like her mum is quite, I guess, like promiscuous for the time, and she, every time she like has a like breaks up in a relationship, she like leaves town and takes her children with her, so they're quite like displaced children. It's just really great. It's got like religious stuff, like specifically Christianity, but it's also got this like incredible like teenage girl at the core of it, and it's very funny, and it's also sad, and it's just like, it's a film that like if I'd watched when I was 17 I would have been absolutely obsessed with it. And obviously like watching it now I still like loved it a lot, but yeah, I kind of wish I had watched it earlier because I did know about it when I was like 17, 19 or whatever, but yeah, it's really enjoyable. Definitely would recommend it. Next is a film that I've actually talked about in a recent video, but that's The Watermelon Woman. This film is also just incredible. I really love films and books that are about like the process of making a film or a book, and like it is that. It's about this black lesbian filmmaker, Cheryl, trying to make a film about this actress from the 1930s called The Watermelon Woman, or like who she calls The Watermelon Woman, and it's kind of about like her tracing her. It's like an exploration of black queer history, and like I said in the last video, like I do think that it and Loat have a lot of similarities, so yeah, I'd really recommend it. Wonderful film. It's another film that I knew about for a while and I just never like found it / got to it. I'm so glad that I really made time to in the last year. Only 2 more films and then I've got some honourable mentions. The next film is Portrait of a Lady on Fire. I feel like the theme here is that like these films I should have watched earlier because I fucking love them, but what can you do? Yeah, this is Portrait of a Lady on Fire, which is set in the 1800s, and it's just about this like woman painter, and she goes to this island or whatever to paint this woman before she is going to get married, and it's very beautiful. It is like kind of interested in like thinking about like the female gaze or whatever as well as the female gaze, but I I don't really necessarily like it that much for that. I love like the world that they create together, these three women. And I also really love, because there's also this woman there called Sophie who's like the servant, and she's really wonderful and I love her storyline. I think that there's like maybe my favourite scene of all time anywhere which is like a big thing to say, but it's basically like one of the characters is getting an abortion and they're like lying on a bed and they're getting this abortion, and like this baby is like lying next to them, and like the baby's sort of like touching their nose and like kind of being quite comforting. Obviously like the baby doesn't know that, but like I think that's a very comforting and sweet thing to do. Yeah, I just like, I love that. I feel like every single person has already seen this film and already talked about it, but if you haven't, you should check it out. And then the last film is a kind of like a documentary, and that's Rebel Dykes. Yeah, it's just this really fun film where a whole bunch of dykes from, I guess, like the 80s and 90s are being interviewed kind of about their experiences in London. I should really rewatch this because like clearly and yeah, it's just like about the worlds that they created together, and it's specifically looking kind of like the radical, like the rebel dyke part of it, and so they talk a bit about like Greenham Common and like people coming from there and kind of calcifying a rebelness as well as a dykeness, and it's just really beautiful. There's some like really sexy older dykes in it, and I'd really recommend it, especially if you want to learn more about like queer history. I think it has like a similar vibe to the Criminal Queers, that other like queer, somewhat lo-fi or like, you know, not like Hollywood budget or whatever film that I loved last year. They're not like in the same vein particularly, it's just more like the approach they have to like representing queer life and like queer resistance to homophobia, society, misogyny, that sort of thing. So yeah, it's really enjoyable. Definitely would recommend you check it out. I think I have like 3 honourable mentions this year. One is The Many Primes of Muriel Spark, which is just like a documentary and you can watch it on YouTube actually. Then I think Passing, that is like of the film Passing, because I think the way that the film managed to adapt a really weird and intriguing and like very bookish book was like really fascinating and quite well done. And I think the third film is The Dybbuk, which is a Yiddish film from the 1930s, which is also available on YouTube, but the subtitles aren't great. But obviously if you can speak Yiddish, it's probably pretty good. I think the sound would probably still be a bit affected, but yeah. And yeah, and it's about a dybbuk and like what happens, and it's just really beautiful. Next section is going to be divided into a couple sections because it's quite a large section, but the next section is textiles. I know that like last time I think like knitting and sewing were just kind of like faves, which is sort of still true because I enjoy doing them a lot, but I guess I have more specific things around those things, although much less sewing this year actually. The first favourite for knitting is knitting podcasts, which I did watch in like at the end of 2020, but 2021 was really like the year of the knitting podcast, and I watch like quite a lot of people, so I think I'll just leave like a list in the description box if you're like interested in specifics. But generally I just really enjoyed like watching people's like podcasts where they talk about what they're making, and I especially like podcasts that are like really focused on like processes of making, and also on like sharing the history behind kind of like various knitting and just like textile creations and stuff. The next like knitting favourites are actually about things that I've made, so this is one of them, but actually I'll talk about things in the order that I made them. So first of all we have this top, which is a ranunculus. Doesn't look that great. It has this patterned yoke, and yeah, I've worn it in a couple videos, and like it's the first like garment I made, and it like fit and everything. Obviously like it's very loose fit, but still it's cool. Yeah, I'm happy with it a lot. And then the next thing I made was this Capulet blouse, which I'm not sure if I have worn in a video actually, but I love these sleeves. I kind of wish I had made them like larger actually. But yeah, it's just like, it's got, you can't quite see it, but it's got like some cabling, and it's like really soft and nice, and I'm very happy with it. And then the other thing that I made were these mittens. I was actually part of a test knit for them, so that's sort of, well, that's one of the reasons I knit them, but I really like them a lot. I think they're cute. Yeah. I do have one favourite that is non-knitting but crochet, so I'll just get that to show you. Her name is Dagny, and I made her for Mari for Christmas / birthday present. In terms of the next like subcategory in this category, that's sewing. This year's like sewing endeavours were quite like different than last year's, just because I was, I guess, focusing more on kind of like changing things I already had, or like that were already garments, rather than making whole new ones. There's 2 videos that I really loved. Well, they're both from the same YouTuber called The Stitchess. She made this one video called Wardrobe Fresh Part 2, where she talks about like the things that she's doing to her clothing to like keep wearing it or to make it like more what she wants it to be. She also has this other video about like creating an alternative wardrobe like within her wardrobe too, and in that she also talks about like some DIYs and stuff, and I just found it really inspiring, and I really like, I guess, like her approach to clothing generally. I guess specifically around like repairing and kind of like upcycling or like editing or like changing her clothes to like work for her. And so that's sort of, I guess, what I've like applied to my own clothing. I've made a couple things, and I guess I just want to like show them to you. I got this dress and it just didn't really work. It was like a wrap dress, but I really like the fabric. It's like this fabric, and so I made a top and like this skirt that's like tiered, ruffled or whatever out of it, and I'll put like a picture of the top because I think that's the nicest part, but I can't find it right now. And that was like really cool, and that was like one thing that I did to like actually make clothes that I will wear and that fit me nicely. I really didn't like how the wrap dress like worked. I also have been getting better and learning more about like repairing clothes, so I have this like tiny little repair to show you. I don't think you'll be able to see it, but it's literally just tiny because this like ripped under the underarm seam and stuff, and you know, I just sewed it up, and you know, I'm excited to just keep making more to my clothes, especially because I already do like keep my clothes for a really long time, so it's good to be able to like have the skills to keep them be clothes that work and fit. I also have this skirt, which is something I actually took basically entirely apart, and I added some extra fabric because it just didn't fit anymore, so I added these like panels. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about it, but I couldn't like give the dress away because I'd already a skirt away, because it had already been a dress which I had already cut just like very haphazardly, and I used to wear that skirt for ages, but yeah, I can't fit it anymore. So yeah, I think it's nice. I've been wearing it more this year and I think it's nice. So that's what I did. And then my favourite thing from this whole section really is this wrap skirt. This is what it looked like before, like this, and that it didn't fit me, and this is from just like a queer like clothes swap that I went to, which was really nice. So I just added this like extra panel of fabric that used to be like the curtains in my parents' room when I was a kid, which I actually just really love. I mean, it's obviously very like intense, but I like it a lot. And I just put the tie that was on here to here, and then yeah, I can wear it, and I'll put some pictures of me wearing it. It's quite long, which I also like, and yeah, I'm really happy with how it came out. I like wear it all the time. It's really nice to feel like I can just do what I want to clothes, and then I'll have clothes that I really want to wear and I really like, and they do look, you know, like they don't look normal or like not handmade or whatever, but I don't really care. Like that's not really a problem for me. I just like wearing clothes that I feel good in and that fit me and I think look nice, and that's what's most important. It obviously helps that I have like impeccable taste though, obviously. The next section is just like Judaism, because I've talked a little bit about this already, but like in 2021 I like really decided to convert and to begin the process of doing that. So you know, that's been like a really lovely aspect to my 2021. You know, God's a favourite, obviously. I just thought I'd talk about some things that were related to this, because I've been finding a lot of joy and pleasure in them. There's actually a video by Insert Literary Pun here that she made like at the beginning of 2021, I think, about Robert Alter's like translation of Torah, like, and his like particular choices and the idiosyncrasies of the Hebrew in the Bible. Yeah, it's just, I really enjoyed it. I found it like really fascinating and just wonderful. I also put a video called Reasons Why I Love Being Jewish by Seedling, who's actually somebody I used to watch like years ago, and then she kind of came back a bit in 2021, which was really lovely. And it's just like a really lovely video. She goes into like various listed reasons why she loves being Jewish and like what being Jewish like gives to her, and it's really nice. And lastly is a video from Snappy Dragon about medieval Jews and their clothing, which is really interesting. I think she makes like 2 outfits and kind of talks about like the differences between them, and also like just like Jewish historical presence, I guess, as well. So yeah, I'd recommend all of those videos. I've also been listening a lot to Kosher Quiz, which is a podcast by Lulav and Jazz, and they're both trans and queer, and it's just this really lovely podcast. And each week they go into, or they've stopped because they finished cycles, but previously they would be going each week into the different parsha for each Shabbat and kind of talking about them, like summarising what happened, and then I guess like thinking them through in quite like a queer, trans and also like leftist approach. And yeah, it's just really lovely, and they talk about like queer Jewish things that they did and they do, and I really enjoyed it. It was something that I felt connected me to like a Jewish community, even though sort of that's not really a thing that I could like participate in you know, this ongoing pandemic. The next section is just like events or like activities. I think the first thing in this section is vaccines and like getting vaccinated, but also more generally like that kind of miracle of biology, I guess, or like science, whatever. I found it really emotional to get vaccinated. I think that like, I guess it's like very easy to kind of forget or like to get bogged down in the kind of like the logistics of vaccination, to like lose the like brilliance of it, and how, you know, this thing like administered through people's hands and their bodies and things can just be like kind of, obviously, you know, I did get vaccinated at a different time and it felt like maybe a bit more hopeful than it does now, but yeah, like it is something that can be life-changing and life-saving, and like that's wonderful, that's incredible. I fell in love with the person who like gave me my first vaccine and yeah, I'm really grateful to have been vaccinated, even though it was very hard to access, and I really hope that people keep getting vaccinated and booster shots and blah blah blah. Anyway, the next kind of like event or activity is swimming in the sea, which is something I was lucky enough to do between like I think July and September, and it took like quite a lot to like figure out how to like get there and stuff, but once I figured it out it was really great, and I love swimming and I love the sea, and for me like swimming is also like a really nice like pain relief to a certain degree, so that was also really enjoyable. And I just like cold water, like open swimming. I went with Vicky for the first time, and then I went with a couple other friends too at various points, so that was also really lovely, and it's just so nice to like move your body in a way that is not hurting. And then I guess the other thing is just like getting more treatment for fibromyalgia and chronic pain and fatigue. At the beginning of the year I was taking medication that I didn't want to take and it didn't help, but I had to like take it for a while to like see if it still didn't help, which like obviously it didn't, but I did make this great meme, so you can have a look at that. But also I did get to like stop taking it and then take actual medication that did help me, so that was great. Yeah, big fave, getting treatment. Being listened to by a medical professional. Right, the last section is like just a miscellaneous section because I didn't know where else to put these, so, and I'm sorry that like the light has obviously been lost throughout this, but yeah. The first thing is the concept of rereading, which is something I did like a lot more intentionally I think last year, and I guess I didn't just reread things that give me comfort, which is what I've sort of done in previous years. I also reread like books like Ancillary Justice and Villette, and they really like affected my reading and just like my enjoyment of doing it, so that was really nice, and I'm glad that I was more intentional about that and like specifically chose things to reread that weren't just like I need to listen to the Tiffany Aching series or whatever, which is also valid and fine, and I also did reread one of those books in the year, but you get it, hopefully get what I'm saying. I also think that the Brontes in general do kind of have to be on the list, like the three sisters, because I read a book from each of them. I read The Tenant of Wonderful Hall, Wuthering Heights and Villette. I really enjoyed them. I visited the Bronte parsonage with Vicky, and that was a really nice trip to do. I realise it's sort of a bit of a basic like literary opinion, but I do quite love them a lot, so there we go. Next on this list is Abria Iyengar. This is very embarrassing to me, and it does demonstrate how nerdy I am. So Abria is like a online role play game person, like Dungeons and Dragons, that kind of thing. So she does like a lot, but the way that I kind of like found her and got more into her is she was the game master for a short kind of campaign under the Critical Role like grouping, the Critical Role universe or whatever, and I just really love her. I love the world that she creates. I think she's a really great GM. I also think she's a great player too. I just really love her. But I think she's just really great. I love how she speaks and how she evokes the worlds that she's like creating with people, and yeah, I just think she's lovely, so would recommend watching the stuff she's in. The next thing on this list is lesbo-eroticism, which like I don't know how accurate it is to say that I had like a lesbo-erotic year, but I guess it is about like seeking pleasure and enjoyment in whatever ways that I can, and that's maybe like more of a testament to it. And I mean, hopefully next year will be even more lesbo-erotic. The last thing on this list is Jungelskog, who I will get and show you whilst I'm talking. Mari and Amanda like sent me him at the beginning of the year, like maybe in February or something, which was just like so nice, and I've just enjoyed his company this past year, and yeah, he's definitely a favourite. So yeah, definitely let me know like what you think about these favourites and if you have any favourites from the past year, and I will, you know, talk to you when I next talk to you. Bye!